ahead and hit. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Lucott, and I'm a social media producer in Carnegie Mellon's Central Marketing and Communications Office, managing the Central at Carnegie Mellon social media accounts.
And I'm Rachel Latsko, she, hers pronouns. I work for the Division of Student Affairs, Marketing and Communications. So that means manage all 16 different units and work with Felicia in Central Marketing. And I also run the Life at CMU account on Instagram.
Awesome. So we are here to talk to you guys today about ways that you can market your student organization on social media, ways that you can be really effective and reach more students. So a quick outline of kind of what we'll talk about. We will get into kind of what it means to build a social media strategy from scratch. And that doesn't really mean building an account from scratch. We know that most of you guys have accounts that, have content on them and have some followers, but I think this is just really rethinking your approach and your strategy to those accounts. We'll talk about some specific strategies for Instagram and Facebook and ways to be more effective there. And we will go over some ways that you can stay connected with us on a regular basis and really get ideas and, get any help on best practices or anything that you might need. So let's get right into it. The two main challenges I think that I hear from not only student organizations, but other departments, academic units, are both content and engagement. So there's always an issue of, we don't have enough content, and then whenever we do post something, it doesn't get a lot of engagement. So what do we do? And it's kind of this, circular cycle where we feel like we're in this never-ending loop and we don't know how to improve. And 2 points that I will really stress, hopefully throughout this entire presentation, are that you are not entitled to engagement just because you posted something. It's not the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you post it, they will care. Do not expect people to care or to engage just because you press send and put something out there. We're really going to focus on the quality of your content today, who that content is for, and how to get that engagement that you're really looking for when you post something. So this is a great tweet. If you don't follow Matthew Kobach, he's great. He does social media for the New York Stock Exchange, but I think this really embodies, how people think about social media versus how it's most effective. And we'll talk about this idea of using social media to really advertise and to push the messages that we think are really important, as opposed to using social media for what it is, a two-way conversation, a tool to engage with people and to, have those conversations. So throughout this presentation, I would really encourage you to think about the content that exists on your platforms currently and ask yourself, is this made to engage people? Did I create this post specifically because I thought it would be shared? I thought people would really enjoy it. Or is this made to sell? And when we talk about selling, maybe you're not trying to sell somebody a product. You're not trying to, sell clothing or, anything like that. But is this made to sell yourself? Is this made to talk about how great your organization is, or make somebody, fill out a form or, take some call to action? And so I have a couple of examples, about that I think embody advertising versus adding value really well. And I'm just gonna move this little box. So, instead of telling someone, okay, I have a makeup product that's launching today, you give a free video makeup tutorial. Instead of telling someone to eat at this restaurant, you share a recipe, you give them something for free that adds value. Instead of saying, we have this gym membership on sale, you give somebody something away for free. You give them those health and fitness tips already. Pittsburgh is the best. Plan your visit today. You tell people what the attractions are. And instead of saying, apply to CMU, we're the best, we really focus on sharing what the student experience at CMU is and sharing those outcomes. A couple of really great examples, I think, of brands that sell without selling and that are really fun and engaging on social media. The first is Panera Bread. And I won't read all, I'll give you guys a second to read some of their super fun tweets. Target is a great one to follow for inspiration. Yeah. And I think what's funny is that they've really taken this idea about, making useless trips to Target, or that you don't need anything from Target, and they've taken that and put their own fun spin on it, instead of taking that as, you know, a negative thing that no one needs anything from Target. We have the Las Vegas Knights hockey team that do a really great job. You can take a second and read over some of those. But a common theme, I mean, you'll see none of these examples are saying, come to Panera and buy a bread bowl on sale for $6.99. You know, we have fall decor on sale at Target. Come on in. Make sure you buy tickets for this hockey game. You know, they use the fun and engaging aspects of their brand, you know, to entertain and to add value to your social media feed. And they give you a reason to follow them. You know, even if you're not a hockey fan, maybe you're still going to follow because you really enjoy the content that's there. And so I would really encourage you to think about what your brand messages are. And for CMU, here's just a few of the things that we try to get across on social media in a more fun and engaging way. You know, the first is that real practical impact. Of course, you always hear this. We're doing work that matters. We're making a real difference in society. Our interdisciplinary focus, we talk about this a lot. We know that students really vary in their majors and programs, and, you know, how we kind of put different things together to receive an outcome. And then, of course, all of the things that make CMU really unique. We're really proud of things like Buggy and the Fence, you know, these traditions that a lot of schools don't have, and that make CMU what it is.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you guys kind of 2 examples of exercises that you can do with your content. Like Felicia said, if you're either doing like a brand refresh, like say you have new officers coming in, or again, if you just kind of want to make better content and more valuable content for your audience. So what you can do with this list here is basically figure out what is the value that you're, you know, proposing, putting out there. For example, like if you look through this list of things, it doesn't make sense for every account. Like when I think of Spirit Fashion Show, obviously you're going to be doing a lot of lifestyle stuff about fashion, maybe even some like behind the scenes type of stuff. I talked to the student recently about the Cheese Club, and that's going to make sense where they're doing food and cooking. Maybe they're doing some crafts with cheese, but they're having those moments. But that's, again, you just kind of want to go through this list essentially and kind of just narrow it down to a couple of things. Because again, if you overwhelm people and try to be the expert in everything, you're the expert in nothing. So like Felicia said, people come because they want to see something or see this unique thing out of your account. So this really helps you kind of focus, you know, and again, not try to be the expert in everything, just, you know, showcase what your student org is doing really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then this one I think is kind of the most fun, or this is at least what I enjoy to do. The tone, so if you think of the previous one as like the what you're putting out there, the tone is basically how, I would say. And what you do is you go through this list. You don't have to pick, you know, go through all of them if they're really not applicable whatsoever to your brand. But just pick one of each of the, you know, the words. And as you're going down, then at the very end, when you kind of have selected all the words, just pick around 3 to 4 possibly that are really like what you're going to make your feed and your content look like. I think some really good examples of this are, you know, if you're looking at, say, the first one, vintage and modern. Okay, a lot of CMU stuff, I would say we're probably mostly modern, but for example, the Beaux Arts ball account, they were showing like stuff from the past when they were doing the black and white theme. And so they had a lot of vintage photos, and that really lent itself to that whole feeling and that whole story that they were telling. Same thing with Spirit Fashion Show, does a really good job. Every time they kind of have like a new theme or the new designers come up, they really do a good job at tweaking their feed to kind of match that vibe. And so it gets people visually interested, and it also can showcase segments in time that tell that story. So this is really important, I think, too, and Felicia can comment on this too, to maintain like brand consistency, especially when you're having transitioning officers, because I'm sure that sometimes you have people come in and maybe have a different, you know, voice that they want to convey, and that's totally okay to kind of change maybe some of your goals, but you really want to stick with having this kind of consistent look, this consistent feel, and sometimes doing an exercise like this is really good for that.
Absolutely. So a couple of things that we'll, you know, focus on today with when it comes to building an engaged audience, and you see engaged, you know, is kind of highlighted there because I think building an audience is one thing. And I always give this example of like news accounts. If you look at the local news in Pittsburgh, KDKA, WTAE, they have tons of followers on social media, sometimes upwards of 100,000 followers. And on Twitter, they get no engagement. And having this massive audience where nobody's engaging with you is kind of like speaking to a room full of people in an auditorium and everybody's asleep. But there's 5 people in the corner, maybe listening, they're awake. But, you're not really being effective with the audience that you have. So, don't be discouraged if you have a small audience, because, it's a lot more impressive and it's a lot more important to engage the audience that you have. So, we're going to talk about ways to evaluate your goals, creating short, visual, scannable posts for that audience that, is your goal audience, making sure that things are mobile first when you're thinking of your content, like a post that's 5 lines on Facebook on, your desktop might be 10 lines on a phone where people are consuming it. Tone, voice, and personality, which Rachel just talked about. But the most important thing, I think, in building your engaged audience is having quality content and consistently executing that. If there's one thing that you remember from today, it should really be that last bullet.
Yeah, can I just throw out in there that example of quality content, and I think a good way to tie in what Felicia was saying just about that conversation, if you're at an event, or one of my pet peeves is if you're in a class or you're at an event and there's a picture of just like people sitting in the chairs at the
back
event,
of the head.
It's one of my pet peeves. Yeah, so like what like we've all seen those pictures in a feed, and it's like, what is this? I mean, now again, if your thing's about networking, but still, like, we're people. Like, what's the thing that you pulls you in and tells this greater story? There's probably much more interesting things that you could take pictures of that at that event, or even if it's of just a person at that event who then you can pull a soundbite from of what they said they talked about. Think a little bit bigger, and again, a little bit more visual. So yeah, that was just my one thing. And please don't post pictures of people sitting in chairs.
Oh, 100%. And I think, as a general rule, people will spend the amount of time engaging with your content as you spend creating it. So if you take 2 seconds, to throw up like a quick blurry photo, I would expect no one to, really engage with that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, when we think about social from scratch and our strategy from scratch, I think the first thing that we need to do is identify who our audience is. So who are you trying to reach? For most of you, that's going to be current Carnegie Mellon students. Think about what the best way to reach them is and how they like to be communicated with. Like I'll get into this a little bit later, but our most engaged Facebook audience on the main account is women aged, I think, 45 to 54. So we know that while students are on Facebook and they're in, groups like Overheard and those things, they're not really engaging with us in that way.
Yeah, Felicia, I just wanted to add, I think a great example of this too is Scotch and Soda recently, for, how they kind of, since now we're in this virtual space, they came up with a new way to deliver like their meeting minutes. And what they did was they go to social, they go to their story, and their PR chair basically in 1 minute gives like the audience a little like snippet of what they talked about. And then I think it's also a way to kind of network and show other groups what they're doing. So I thought that was a great example of, figuring out how people that in this virtual space really utilizing social media in a good way to kind of, look at something you do every day and is usually on paper in like a new way.
Oh yeah, I love that. And much more engaging than just like reading it in an email.
Yeah.
So creating a content strategy, like thinking just back to like the core and the root of what you do, like what is the purpose of you being on social media? If you're on multiple platforms, why? Why do you need to be in more than one place? Are they different and distinct from one another? Because someone does not need to follow you on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter to get the same exact content in 3 places. So thinking about the type of content that you'll have, a successful strategy is not just like waking up every day and saying, oh, what can we post today? It really, requires some planning and thought. So thinking about who is going to be the dedicated person or group of people to, create, schedule, post, but not only just put, the content out there, who is going to engage, who is going to respond to questions, who is going to seek out interactions and make your account a little bit more meaningful. And the most important thing, I think, is that you're adding value. So again, what is your tone and voice? What is the personality of your account? If they were a person, who would they be? What would they sound like? I think we get enough just like robotic form information, you know, in all aspects of our lives. And, you know, again, think about like the Paneras and the Targets of the world. They do such a great job at differentiating themselves. And why should someone follow you? You know, like someone who might not be interested at all, or somebody who might be interested, but, you know, might not, you know, want to add another account. Because when you think about social media and all the accounts that you follow, you know, it's a lot of noise. So I think that asking someone to follow you is honestly like a big ask. So I think, you know, we have to make it worth their while and think about, you know, what is that why? What value are you adding to their feed and to their timeline? All right. I would say any questions, but we are virtual. So I don't think we have any questions. So getting into telling your story and actually creating content. So I'm going to talk about content buckets here and ways to kind of think about your overall strategy. And these are examples from a previous institution. I was the social media manager at Point Park for over 3.5 years. And these are some examples from how we kind of thought about our content strategy and what those buckets were from a Twitter perspective, to be more engaging than just saying, apply here, visit us, fill out this form. So our first category is student life and campus happenings. And, you know, these would be like fun things that we might see around campus, a student writing send cash on their dorm room window. This, you know, cute little sentimental graduation post. Things like this, you know, I think I did something silly like this one time and students really loved it. And anytime that I would post like, happy Monday, you know, have a great day, love you, bye, you know, people loved it. And so I really kind of like built off of that momentum. And, you know, I think listening to what your followers like, and paying attention and giving them more of that is going to be really successful for you. When we tore down a historic building on our campus, we had a big celebration for that. Tom Hanks on campus filming the Mr. Rogers movie, of course, really fun. Lots of holiday seasonal content. And the reason that we talk about these things is just because everybody else is talking about them. And again, you know, it's about engaging in conversations that are already taking place. So we want to be a part of those conversations. Point Park was known for its vertical campus. The buildings are really tall downtown and there's lots of floors, lots of elevators. So, you know, we kind of play on that. Someone dressed like a ghost passing out candy outside on October 1st. We're ready for fall. Spring has been canceled. That was a rough winter I think we were having. Yikes. You know, again, like what are our students thinking about? They're counting down to Thanksgiving break right before Thanksgiving break. Great 4th of July post. And then cultural connections, Twitter trends. And I think this kind of category is, it really requires you to be like a daily active user of social media, to know what's going on, to know what those kind of trends and memes are and how you can capitalize on them with your brand. So Point Park was very connected to the Penguins in a variety of ways. This was like the first day of the playoffs, I think we posted that. And this was a picture actually of 2 of the players, and that's our campus branding, or what was our campus branding in the background when the parade came right through. This was a trend going on for a while. Again, you see a play on the elevators and that sort of thing. Again, another fun trend like this. I think this was like, you know, a no makeup selfie and then a pretty selfie people would do. Like, if you don't love me here, you don't get me here. And we did a ugly rainy day photo versus a nice sunny day. Whether like it was really hot, our residence halls didn't have air conditioning. And then, you know, so again, like instead of trying to hide those bad things or say like, hey, it's actually according to the heat index, it's not that hot, or you can put a cold towel on your face. Like we just are like, no, it's hot. We acknowledge it. And this was a fun one whenever IHOP, you know, changed the P to a B, and there was like all this pandemonium on social media about it. So we kind of jumped in on that fun, and people really enjoyed it. And then we have our campus and city beauty category. People loved from us there. Just really great shots of Pittsburgh. We're in the middle of downtown, so we would always promote Pittsburgh as our location. You know, whether it's like these beautiful sunsets or like kind of these dark and stormy photos. This was just, I think, a whole category that always did really well. And these are things that, again, you know, people liked, people want to share, people want to say, wow, look how pretty, look how cool this is. I go here, like, this is my school. Mm-hmm. And then finally, you know, after all of these things, we get to the end. And this is I would consider like the first 4 categories are like your whole entire cupcake, and then the promotional content is just those sprinkles on top. But so often when we think about social media, we think of just that last category, just the promotional content. How can we get out our messages? How can we tell people to come to our event, to join, to do this, to do that? But being on social is, again, it's about a lot more than just sharing your messages. And whenever we shared that promotional content, we tried to do it in a really fun and engaging way. So this was a post, encouraging people to apply to Point Park. A profile on a student who was really involved and had a lot of internship experiences. Another student who got this great internship at the New York Times. Another student profile, something really fun. We try to write the post text in a really fun, engaging way. And a post encouraging campus visitation. So again, like from an administrative perspective, people want to say, okay, how are we making that connection from using social media to getting more students to apply and to choose Point Park? And it's really through all of the categories that you see before is how we get them engaged and get them talking with us, and then we can sprinkle in those promotional messages. So a little just brainstorming thing for you guys to think about. Try to find like maybe 3 content categories that you think are relevant for your brand. Things that you can talk about that are not telling people to join, to sign up, to come to an event. And I think too, it's good to identify for you, like, what are those promotional messages? And then what are the other fun things that you can be talking about? Anything to add, Rachel? Anything?
No, I would just say, like, just going off what Felicia just said, it's almost like a little, it's almost like an elevator pitch that you would do for yourself, but you would do for your brand. Like, what in the shortest couple sentences, how could you identify your brand, tell someone about it? And we keep saying brand, but it's interchangeable with, again, your student org.
Oh, yeah.
If like whatever you say in a couple sentences, that really should be reflected on your feed. Like, if you say you're inclusive, you better be showing that there's, different types of students on your feed, and you're telling different stories. If you're into sustainability, I know like Sustainable Earth, like their content is always great, like content in their story about all different, ways to get involved, giving people facts, getting people educated. And then they do say, hey, we have this cool event to attend, but they always seem to like put some facts beforehand. And yeah, so just think of it as like an elevator pitch, but it's for, like when you're coming up with these like branding exercises, like think of it in that way if it helps at all.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. So getting into Facebook, we won't spend too much time on Facebook because I know that most of you guys are on Instagram, but there are some organizations that also have a Facebook page. Again, this is just thinking about your audience. So first and foremost, when we look at the demographics for the main account, we see that the leading group, it's not our only group, but we see the largest portion of our followers are men, 25 to 34. But the most likely to engage with us are women 45 to 54 who, we kind of say like the mom group. So, we are a lot of the time using Facebook to talk to parents because we know that parents are really influential in the decision-making process. And they also want to stay connected when they have a student here at Carnegie Mellon. And then, we have kind of these second groups that are, competing with us. I think we see like current students and maybe some young alums as well. So I will use these Facebook examples to talk about like writing for social media specifically. And I think just, like I always say, there's 2 ways to write something. You can phone it in kind of, which is just like literally maybe you copy and paste something from the story, or, you just write, you kind of write what the headline is and you put it out there. And it's very simplistic. Or you can really take the time to write something that is going to make somebody take the time to read it, to click on it, to engage with it. I really like to create posts that are just like boom, 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 short to the point. When you think about, you have this preview text here, you have a headline and a description. So you don't need to repeat what is in there in the post text. People can read that. So I think that when you can just say something kind of brief that adds to it, that's really effective. Again, you see kind of that same style here, a few descriptors of the student, and then meet him, and then we tag the student in the video. Students that did this like really meaningful work with a cleanup, A recipe for success. Take what you've learned, apply it to something that matters. You know, we try to be like bold and, you know, really to the point about what these students are doing and what it means. When you're good with a camera, you love hockey, shooting a video for USA Hockey is job goals. Again, just a few lines, short to the point. We try to be really fun. When Pittsburgh was a top city for St. Patrick's Day, something short to the point, not repeating what's in the headline. Because again, I mean, there's really not much more to say other than what's in the headline. Like that kind of is the story, is that we're the eighth best city.
Yeah, and we now know more than ever that people really just read headlines a lot of times. So if you don't grab them with that and make them want to know more, I mean, it's just like if someone came up to you on the street and said basically the same thing to you in 2 sentences, like back to back, you'd be like, what is this person talking about?
Like,
think of it like that. It's a conversation.
Exactly. Like, do you want to apply to Carnegie Mellon? Have you applied to CMU? Like,
Yeah.
saying the same thing. That's so true. This was a time lapse of our new Playhouse facility being built, and we say, how long does it take to build a Playhouse? 1 minute and 24 seconds, even though, you know, it took years, obviously, but that is the length of the time lapse. And then one more for move-in. We say, we do the unloading, lifting, wheeling, waiting, and moving, so you can do the unpacking, hugging, laughing, crying, goodbying. We always love those fun, sentimental ones. Facebook, I think, is also a really great place for video content, and I have a few quick examples that I'll show you. Nothing is over a minute long, so don't be concerned. And I really encourage you to think about video like 90 seconds or less. And whenever you are more at that 90-second mark, you know, really thinking about how engaging is it, and do you think people are going to continue to watch for that full 90 seconds? So this is something that we did. We did a feature on the Tricking Club at Carnegie Mellon.
With us, you will learn to do things in 10 minutes that you never thought you could do in your entire life. This stuff that looks just completely intimidating, but the way that we can teach it and break it down, you can learn it really fast, and then you'll be in an environment where everyone is just like looking out for you to grow. Everyone is pushing you to grow. This is the thing that I am most proud of at CMU. Like, aside from like TAing and research and all of this and like the internships and whatever, making this club and giving this place for people to express themselves and grow together is definitely the thing that I am happiest that I did at CMU, and it will be what I remember about CMU for sure. I just hope that it stays a place where people feel like they have a family here, and they feel like they can be as weird as they want to be, and they feel like they can always push themselves and never be afraid to like put themselves out there.
So a couple of things, you know, we're at about just a minute, I think, on the end of that, 59 seconds. You only saw the person talking twice. We really try to avoid like the talking head and just a video of somebody talking. And this was a great example because obviously what they do, the nature of it is so visual and exciting. So we really tried to focus on that as opposed to, you know, we were able to share the messages without just showing that person talking. And you know, you'll notice the video was captioned. So we're really making an effort now to make all of our videos accessible and add captions to them.
With us,
and we'll go on to the next one. This is just a very short intro of a video. This is a part of a new series called Across the Cut that we actually started during the quarantine over Zoom. So it's Zoom interviews with, you know, students, staff, faculty, and I will just show you a little bit of that.
Pretty competitive person, and golf is one of the sports where like you show up one day and you're like, I could play really bad or I could play like the best round of my life. I think the challenge is not necessarily making those great rounds better because they're already great.
Jason, you are a Jack Nicklaus National Player of the Year Awards semifinalist. What does that mean for you, and how did you feel when they made the announcement?
So just a kind of a quick intro. You can watch all of these on our Facebook page, but this guy on the right, Michael Henninger, he works in marketing with us, and this is his kind of idea and series, and I think a really great way to create interesting video content while we're all over Zoom. You know, when we couldn't do something like the last video that you saw with the Tricking Club. So, you know, just kind of something to think about, ways that you might be able to still use video and engage people, you know, even though we might not be able to be in person. And this is one of my favorite examples because this is just a repurposed video that I saw, I think, on Instagram. And I just reached out and said, hey, can we reshare this? And it's the volleyball team, just doing a TikTok, social distancing, someone hitting the ball in the next video, they receive it and hit it back. Even though I will say we have some older followers, as I mentioned on Facebook, who commented and they were like, these students should not be using the same ball. This is not safe and sanitary. And I was like, the ball is a different color in some of the videos. But yeah, so maybe, for that particular audience, it kind of missed the mark. But I mean, you'll see this is, I think, our top post of all time on CMU Facebook. We have over 1 million impressions, over 50,000 engagements, tons of comments and shares. And I didn't have to even do the work. I didn't even have to create this TikTok. But, really fun. And again, just a short video. Ooh, it's loud. Let's turn that down.
You did a really, really good job with this. Like, the way that the ball lines up, like, yes.
So yes, again, it was very obvious to me that they were all in different locations, but to some it may not have been, and that's okay. So getting in, anything else you want to add about video, Rachel, before I?
I think you did a good job.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to Instagram. We're moving right along. So again, thinking about our audience and kind of who they are, it looks like a tie right now, and I put that our leading audience is women 18 to 34 because it generally is. The day that I took this screenshot, the 25 to 34 category, they're moving in on us, which we would consider our like young alums or grad students. But our Instagram, and I know that the Life at CMU Instagram, I think we share the same primary audience, which is current students.
And that's pretty indicative of social media in general, right? Like for Instagram, isn't women's the largest audience, isn't it? Typically?
Yes, I believe so. I believe so. And I think that like 18 to, maybe even 34, like what was our largest combined categories are usually the top ones. So this is a recent screenshot of our feed. And when it comes to content strategy, I'm pretty narrow on Instagram with what I define as, what we want. And that's really like the bottom line is things that are visually interesting. And I really, really try to stick to that. I always say things that make you say, wow. I want people to scroll through our feed and look, left to right and wow, everything is so pretty and stunning and, so cool. And you really want to look at it. And things that are really high quality, and high quality does not always mean it was shot on a DSLR and it's really edited and produced. You can create something that's really high quality on an iPhone. Things that we do not want and that do not really do well for us. Graphics, you'll never see like a graphic, a flyer, an advertisement on our feed. I think there's a way to put that content into stories and make it more engaging there. Any old photo. We do incorporate, like photos of people once in a while, but generally photos of people don't do as well unless they're it's a photo around a really big moment, which we'll kind of talk about. But we really, really try to be strategic with how our, grid is laid out, and does everything look like it goes together, even in the quarantine in those times. And is it something that is really visual and cool and people want to look at? And I think a great student organization example of this is Lookbook. I think their feed is so cool. Yes, they do such a good job. I think showing like the unique styles of students and making everything look really like unique and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and can I just say too about the text on photos, like it's not accessible. So like that's just a huge thing. Like we have to be aware of that. And most of the stuff that you can put on the photo, and I feel like it's most of the time it's just to save time that you repurpose a flyer, or some graphic designer is really, really attached to their work, but you can put that same info in the caption or in a comment. And there's the option now in Instagram to add, the alt text, which you should be doing. And just, so please, like, if you want everyone to engage with your content, you have to make your content for everyone. So just please, I know that it's never going to go away. We're still going to see it on everyone's accounts, but if you can do, just think about what is it that's the greater takeaway and try to use that to form your image, and then put that, like, that text as, again, the caption or as a comment, or, to direct them to a website. That's the best place for information.
And if you don't know what Rachel means by accessible, it's that if somebody's blind, like they're using a screen reader to access social media, a screen reader describes the image and then it will, transcribe the caption aloud, but it can't like read the text that's in an image. It would say red with white, right? It wouldn't know that.
It's more people than you think too. I'm pretty sure it's like 1 in 5, around 20% of people have these types of disabilities. So, and like Felicia said, it could be a visual impairment. It really can just be like she also said, color blindness. There's a lot of different things that you just like wouldn't think that, would be an issue. And it is. So again, it's just, we can all do better for sure. I know I still do stuff on Life at CMU that I catch myself sometimes, or I go, oh, I should have added captions to that video.
We could be better about alt text, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I usually like pick a month and I go back and redo all the alt text, like bad habits for sure. But like, this is something as an audience we can all grow together and just, we can work towards.
Absolutely. And also, a flyer is just not that engaging. Like if you think about the core of Instagram and the purpose and what it was made for, it's for, photos and interesting visuals.
Or like, going off the flyer, if you have, like, I know some of our groups on campus do amazing artwork and there's these great artists, showcase the art. You don't need to put the text there with it,
Absolutely.
If you can just have the graphic from that flyer and then in the caption do it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a little bit of then and now, and this is a screenshot of CMU's Instagram before I got here. And I think there are some like interesting pieces here that could work. I think that the overall theme, it's a little bit messy. There's
people sitting at tables.
Right. Yes. People sitting at tables. Photos of like pieces of paper. I think a lot of these images could work on Facebook or Twitter better. So hopefully you can see like a really strong difference in the theme. This is a screenshot of actually like from kind of the beginning of quarantine and into like the next few months. But I will also note that the pictures that you see on the right, like I think those were taken by maybe 11 different people. So if you have a lot of people contributing, like that can really work if you as the person creating it know like what the theme and what the style is. And I think that like these images go together really nicely. We have lots of CMU branding. That's another thing that's really important to us is that, when someone looks at our feed, we want them to easily be able to identify that we're CMU. And that sounds like a funny thing because it's in our username. Like, why would we need to do that? But someone actually showed me an example of, it was like Apple Music, Spotify, a couple other streaming services. And it showed you just the feeds like you see here with the names cut off, and you would never be able to tell who was who. They all looked the same. They all just had images of artists and, playlists and different things. And it was really difficult to identify without that, like what the brand was.
And I think something so powerful too, I just want to go back to that Felicia said was, the ability to, if you have different people to take the photos, because that's, people seeing people through a different lens. We all bring our own backgrounds and experiences, to this university. And if we're not all, kind of showcasing how we, live our lives every day, we're really missing out on a really greater experience. So I love how Felicia said that, if you're the social media manager, it's kind of your job to, kind of filter everything and put your stamp on it and whatnot. But it's really important that, for so many years we had the same people behind a lens taking pictures of lots of other different types of people, and we missed out on a lot of opportunities to have greater stories and to showcase more people. So I think now more than ever, if you can really leverage your student org and your community, you're going to tell a lot better stories and have better content.
Absolutely. And I think, when you can build a really engaged audience, like a lot of the content you see here is reposted from the community. So this figure skating post, was on their account. That was a repost. These dogs were a repost. This inspirational message was a repost along with this couple. This photo of a student was a repost. And then most of what else you see came from our student photographers, but you know, it's finding things that work and that fit together in that way. But yes, Rachel, I think that's an excellent point, is that we've had like a very singular lens for a long time on what things look like.
For sure.
So these are some of our top posts from the main account and what has worked best for us. We do have a lot more of the fence. This Kobe fence actually is our top post of all time, which I don't think we were really expecting. And you can see like it's pretty, you know, far and away kind of from what the other posts are. It's our only post to exceed 5,000 likes. And we only have a few things in the 4,000 range. These are from our student photographers. And so, you know, looking at these three, like really what this tells me is that people love like those bright, bold, really beautiful scenes on our campus. Like these cherry blossoms, people were like, wow, like this is stunning. I didn't know we had these. Hammerschlag is a crowd pleaser for us. People always seem to like that. You know, again, like this really beautiful sunset, things that are just these moments that you have to be there for.
Yeah.
I had mentioned people, and when it comes to people, sharing big moments is what's most effective for us. So this was part of a carousel that we did for graduation this year. You know, something people are really excited about as opposed to just a photo of a random person. And then this student who was on Jeopardy, again, that's like a really big moment, a really big deal for her. And then we have, of course, one of our class photos, and then someone who had redid the Walk
remember
Into the Sky for Halloween. Something that was really cool. So just to kind of give you an idea of like what our top content is and, you know, what students have liked most from us. So, you know, I'm always looking at what are those best performing posts and how do I continue to give people more of what they like in a unique and interesting way.
Yeah, and then, you know, as far as Life at CMU goes, maybe I should have also changed this from what works best to almost just, I wanted to like take a moment to kind of just say, sometimes people are like, what's the difference between like the Carnegie Mellon account and Life at CMU? I would think that's especially confusing too for like first year students coming in. I would just say that I really think that we're a complement to each other, for sure. And just to give some background, you know, there was the original Carnegie Mellon account, and then, you know, just because of kind of the way that staffing was, and also just kind of the vibe on the campus at the time, they said like, hey, we really want this separate space to showcase student life, for example. And so that's kind of where, you know, it originally came from, just so you get that background in history. And again, now we have this full amazing social team that Felicia is a part of. So you're seeing the main Carnegie Mellon account really become this, you know, this great place for storytelling and great content. And we're here, you know, at Life at CMU to maybe, like I said, complement, but also just really be an advocate for students' voices. And again, just to remind you that, you know, we also represent student affairs. So we do have, you know, a lot of times, like Felicia said, mixed within a lot of our other stuff then is those news and events that are kind of tied to student affairs, and a lot of our highlights, which I'll show you next, you know, it's highlights from housing and dining, et cetera, et cetera. So I just kind of wanted to say, you know, going back to that one tone exercise where we talked about like kind of what are your like 3 or 4 words, I kind of like reflected on like for Life at CMU, and I feel like we try to kind of go between like quirky or playful. I always love the word gritty. You know, we do try to be authentic. Also personal, you know, I really always try to, if I just, you know, if I find a really great photo of a student, in that caption, how can I make it more personal and maybe tell something or let them have this moment to share, you know, when they might not, you know, have this large audience again, like what's something that's very personal to them that they want to talk about in this moment. And then inclusive, and that's something that I know, you know, I'm sure Felicia, both of our accounts can do a much better, you know, job at being more inclusive and, you know, and showing a diverse group of people. And that's something that, you know, we're definitely working towards, and we want you to know that. But I just wanted to showcase, you know, a couple of these just to kind of now call back to, you know, with those words in mind, like the Thorn emoji was something, you know, that's very quirky and fun and unique. And, you know, when it was a World Emoji Day, we kind of did a little like, can you find the Thorn emoji within all the other ones? As far as, you know, being inclusive, the one with the girl looking to the side in the red, we actually worked with Scotch and Soda Theater, and they had some really great shots of different productions they put on the past with like kind of different lights on them. So you see red there. And what we did was we matched them with the rainbow color and then the rainbow. And then during the month of June for Pride Month, we did a little fun thing about, you know, what is the history of Pride and what are the flag meanings. Some people don't realize that each color actually has a specific meaning for Pride. So you can scroll through and see the different pictures, and then I tell you in the, you know, in the caption kind of what are the different things. And yeah,
like concept for Pride too that you wouldn't normally think of, but I think like you use that rainbow concept in a really cool way.
yeah. And then the one post that I have here that was one of our like better performing videos that we had was from CMU Sands. And if you're not aware of that, they are an a cappella group on campus, and Mira Mukherjee. This was actually right during like the first couple weeks of the pandemic. And I think that, you know, back in, I want to say we posted this around like the first or second week in April. And I think people were kind of just feeling kind of disillusioned, you know, didn't know what was going on, feeling down. We started to become in quarantine, and you know, they have this really cool concept of these like Sunday serenades that they do. And, you know, I saw this video, and it wasn't a happy song. It was kind of haunting and sad, but it went with what everyone was feeling. And it was, you know, she sang beautifully, and it was just something that we had really, you know, good views on and whatnot. And I think that's something, if you can identify with your student organization, how can you find those moments that, you know, really attached to what's going on in the world? Like, I think even with like Felicia's, like the Kobe fence, I would think for sure that was a great timely post. And that's why you probably saw a tons of engagement. Same thing with the Halloween thing. Like those are things that people find interesting and fun, and it just is also the right time. So just try to be truly authentic. And, you know, that's something that I know Felicia and I, when we talk more towards the end about connecting with you guys, that we really want to really work with you, you know, and to make sure that this is you know, our platforms reflect, you know, your experience.
Absolutely. And that's also just such a great note about timeliness, which I don't think that has been mentioned, is that, you know, certain things like, you know, they really kind of does need to be in that moment.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to show, again, this is now, I will completely like empathize with everyone out there that is like, I don't have a graphic designer to work with some of our content. So I'm sure, I know, Felicia, I think you mentioned it in some of them, like apps that you could use. I mean, there's always like Canva is a great app, but one thing I just wanted to show with this is, again, think about those keywords that I like played it on. It's personal, it's quirky, you see fun colors. This is something that no matter if we have different students come in or if I do different work on here, this is a mix of students and my work together. You know, you still are going to be like, oh, that's life at CMU. Like it still has that like CMU kind of really interesting, quirky quality, but it's not as much as the main account that has like those beautiful, maybe red tones, and it is more sleek and it's a bit more modern, but you can still like identify the two accounts and they still kind of complement each other well. And again, this is just an example of the Life in a Text Box series was a really great example of our student worker was actually when the quarantine happened, she wasn't, she's originally from Shanghai, China, and she wasn't able to go back. And so she spent Pittsburgh here since, you know, the end of when everybody moved home. So from March, so she was writing this she's also an English major. So she was writing, you know, this little diary, and we turned it into a series. And we used our other student, Peter, to kind of come up with this awesome artwork that played off of stuff in her room, stuff in her space. So you kind of learn more about her through the imagery without even kind of realizing it. Our community health and well-being group, you know, that's a place again where we try to be inclusive and really, you know, draw attention to different communities on our campus and support them. We did a story, you know, about different LGBTQ plus resources. I think this was during Pride Month, and yeah, you can even just see kind of on some of our highlights that, you know, it's, you know, the main CMU account, I think a lot of times really utilizes the really great kind of cool icons, and then that's just our take on it. That's, again, it's more handwritten, it's more personalized, but still same concept.
And I think more fun, you know, more fun for students, and I think representative of what you guys are.
Yeah.
So again, kind of another brainstorming thing to think about is just, you know, what has worked best on your account. And I think, you know, if you have a business account, you get those native insights for free, right, in Instagram, and you can, you know, get at least an overview of, you know, what has been the most liked, what has not worked well. And, you know, there's a lot of things I've done in the past that I loved that nobody else did. And it's okay if sometimes we spend a lot of time on things and, you know, it just didn't go over as well. So a couple of quick just Instagram story content samples from the main account. Let me just move that. The first is Lunar Gala from this year that we went and covered this. And, this is an example of obviously like kind of like an event, like going in and talking to people and looking at what's going on and getting people really excited for the event that was the next day. And so for something like this, I really take like great care with Instagram stories, like as much care as I do with our feed. So, I actually will go in and I'll take all my videos and all my photos and collect all my content, and then I'll go home or go back to my office and I'll sit down and go through it all and then put it all together at one time. So I think that's just that to me is less, overwhelming than being in the event and trying to get the content and post it right then and figure out like the structure of the story and how it will flow. So it's just really important to me that like visually, like the images and the photos and the, whatever we're doing looks like it's all supposed to go together. And, again, taking that same care with your content as you want people to take when they, consume it.
Yeah, and I think like that was a great example too of people love behind the scenes stuff. I mean, like, why do people watch reality television? Like, why do we watch things that we just watch people living their same lives like us? Like, it's that idea of like getting to see stuff that other people don't. So I think this is a great example of what you can do with your organizations of if you do have this event on, use this behind the scenes content or stuff that people on the outside wouldn't normally see. That's definitely going to be something that people would be like, interested to look at.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the appeal of like celebrity social media in general, is that they're, these people that seem so far away, but then we can kind of get this intimate look into their lives.
Definitely.
So that's a great example or great point to make. This is a totally different type of story. So this was something that we did for Carnival this year. We had made a Facebook post about Carnival, and this woman, Rachel, had commented that, oh, I met my husband through Carnival and I love Carnival. And so I had reached out to her to follow up and kind of get their love story, and we put it together. So, this was her like sharing her photos and her content with me, and us being able to share this really fun story with the CMU community around the event that was so special to them.
Yeah.
So again, something totally different.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think that's a good way, I know it's sometimes really hard to come up with ideas for posts, but I think this is a great example of sometimes we get so tied into the granular nitty gritty of like, okay, Carnival is this thing where this happens at it. Like, this is what I have to show.
I'm going to give you the schedule. This happens at this time. This happens at this time.
Yes, here's a picture of this one thing that happened there, but here's like another way to look at the story that, maybe like here, example of the love story, or, maybe someone was, going through a hard time and Carnival, like, was this escape for them? And that's the story you tell. Right. Just think of those different things.
Like, yeah. Oh, sorry, I want to cut you off.
No. I was like done.
But, or like, you spent like hours building this booth and something went wrong. And at the last minute, you made a change. Like, those are the stories to, to really tell.
100%.
More than like, come to my event at this time, at this day.
Yeah, and I think one thing like Felicia and I have talked about before too is that, we're always really obsessed with showing successes and like the end product. And, like I completely get that because we're like strivers, we're makers, we're doers. That's like we, stuff that we pride ourselves on. But really why do we watch reality television? Why do we watch really sad movies? There's just something about, connecting with humans and having that transparent experience where you can, tell different stories. I think there was a great one, Felicia, that the main one did about, someone who was in an intake facility, was struggling with mental health issues. And, sometimes people need to see that to be empowered, and maybe it doesn't work for some of your audience, but it'll work for, a couple of people. And that's important too, to keep in mind. So just think about, again, like those diverse stories. And dogs.
Absolutely. So again, this is I think those are all great points, by the way. This is a totally different type of story. Again, like this is something just fun that we did in quarantine, like literally just show us your pets. And this story was just all crowdsourced. It's one of our most viewed of all time. And it was just, just something fun to do. And again, like people tagged us in their photos. We just repurposed them. You kind of get the content from your audience. So, it doesn't always have to be something really groundbreaking and you're spending so much time like slaving away over your content. So I like to show this slide again because I think that people get really caught up in that, like they can't have a really like cool aesthetic Instagram without being a photographer or having like great candids all the time. But all the photos that you see here were all shot on an iPhone. And some of these, like at previous institutions and at CMU for us now, have all been really top performing posts for us. And people are a lot of the time really surprised when I say that a lot, these were all shot on an iPhone, but an iPhone is really powerful, and don't discount it and don't feel discouraged if you're just working with an iPhone and with Canva, because Rachel and I are mostly doing the same.
Oh, for sure.
Some rules and tools for images. And this might honestly be one of my most important and favorite slides. Sizing to the platform. So if you're on Twitter, please do not post an 8x10 vertical flyer. Like the image should be, the horizontal, it should fit in there. Or if you have something for Instagram stories, like it's really easy to just go into Canva for free to make it for that correct size, make sure everything fits, isn't cut off. If you're taking photos of someone, think about like very clean backgrounds. Being mindful of lighting, putting the light in front of somebody. If you're taking a selfie, with the window in front of you is kind of the way to go.
Yes.
And then 2 apps that I think are really, really useful and have helped me a lot are Snapseed, which is a Google editing app. It's free. And I think that you can do a little bit more than some other editing apps in there and a little more granular. And then Preview. If you don't use Preview, get it now. It's so great for planning your grid. It will load all of your Instagram photos in the grid and the way it looks. And then you can upload like things that you plan to post into it, and then kind of move things around. And like, I'll go in there and say, okay, I don't really like the way this photo looks next to this one, so I'll post it later. And I think that's a really great way to plan your feed and to keep your feed looking the way that you want.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that. That's awesome.
Oh, it's like my favorite thing. So again, if you don't know the dimensions, you can always Google them, but here they are for your reference. Sizes that work best. I always see like this size again on Twitter, and I'm like, what's going on?
Lazy repurposing.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, don't be lazy. People will take the time consuming it that you spend, creating it. So 4 important takeaways, and I will let Rachel give her takeaways as well. But for me, these would be my most important things, is that your social media accounts are not a billboard. This is not the place to tell everybody, check it out, come to my event, do this thing. That is not the purpose. If you are not adding value with your social media accounts, you're just making noise. And there's already so much noise on social media to cut through. So it's so important that your account is meaningful and useful and interesting and engaging, and it's adding value. And the most important things you can do, I referenced this at the beginning, are to have quality content and to post consistently. That will pay off in spades in growing your audience and also in increasing engagement.
Yeah. And this is a perfect intro into this, because I was going to say, Felicia, I know that a lot of you are maybe doing this as, just an extra thing. You're not obviously social media managers or, coordinators. Maybe you got this job because you want it to be on your resume. So you're not completely sold on it. I definitely get that. But the thing is, like Felicia was saying, I mean, you have to, just the way also too that Instagram works now with the algorithm, like you have to be active on it. So I think like I love all of Felicia's takeaways. I agree with them. I don't think I really had anything to add except maybe just a way of thinking of time management. If you can even just pick like 30 minutes a day, probably, I don't know, Felicia, what you think, like maybe like right after lunch might be the best time of day if it's the one time you can check in, or even around dinner time, because you'll get some of the stuff from the morning, some stuff from the day that people are posting. If you can do that and just commit to either, and not necessarily posting then, but going on and do like liking, commenting on different CMU stuff, and leading into this, because aside from that, we have a lot more tips and, interesting things in this really, this like cool thing that I'm very excited about, that we tried to start up in, March of this year.
Timing.
COVID happened. And so we're really trying to like get it kicked off, for this semester. So we have our own Slack channel, and although it's called Life at CMU, think of it again, it's really just kind of the social experience at CMU, but since we're having students in there, that's why it's branded that way. But it's really the space that we want to, we know that students use, Slack, or if you're not familiar with Slack, think of it like a Discord for gamers. It's really like a chat app. Trying to think of like other entities, but it's like a messaging chat app. You can see there's different threads people can talk on. Because there was a time I was talking to a student and I went on this whole spiel and he was like, I don't know what Slack is. So just throw that out there. But it's really this space that we want to, include different officers, even if you're not maybe the main social media person, main communications, main PR person, it can even be your president if they're really, kind of involved in this branding concept and the, imagery and whatnot. Definitely are welcome to be in here, but it's going to be this space that we can really kind of, interact with each other and co-create this social experience and also just really build up our social community. If we're leveraging each other, we can make our social so much more powerful. And, if you're putting all this work into your content and no one's seeing it, yeah, it's fun for you and like 4 of your friends and your organization. But the point is that you want to get your stories out there and you want to make all your efforts and work, meaningful and, and again, significant. So let's, in this space, you can see there's some different channels there. I give you the opportunity to, if you have a new post on your, account, you have a new post in your feed, tell us about it. We can all the people that are in there can go like, comment, share, do all the fun stuff. You'll get better engagement. I have a place for you to introduce yourself so that you can see the different people. As you can see, Felicia, myself, and Bill Lyon is in there. Bill is awesome. You probably were back in, pre-COVID times, probably even now have seen him on campus. He does a lot of great content for us. But we're in there because we're really trying to break down this barrier between staff and students. And I think now more than ever, we see like in COVID that there's a lot of times people are being kind of harsh on each other, and especially on social media, because we're all now stuck behind keyboards and behind the phone. And this is really a space where if you are unhappy with stuff, or if you have great ideas for stories, here's a space now that we can talk about it with each other. You can also, again, we can post story ideas, like if we're looking for specific content, or say we're like, hey, did any students like, I don't know, like go on, like have a crazy trip or something like that. And, this is a place where then you can be like, oh, someone in my organization just went blah, blah, blah. Bad time to use that example because like no one's traveling, but this first one that came to mind. And again, the tips that are in there, good tips. Especially when we talk about hashtags to use. We'll talk about that a little bit, like I think in the next slide, but again, just kind of really, good things that are specific to CMU too. So information that again will make your social more powerful. But yeah, we're excited for this because I think it'll be a cool, another cool thing where we're doing a lot of collaboration, and that doesn't always happen in the social media world with students and administration all the time. So, and yeah, but we're, you see Felicia and I here, we're pretty, we're pretty cool to hang out with. We want to talk to you. We don't want it to seem like it's, we're not approachable and we don't care about what you're doing, because, we're here because of you. So.
Absolutely. And I think, like Rachel really emphasized, in addition to this being a space for everybody to like be collaborative and learn and get tips and tricks and help, this is a place for us to like find out what's going on with students, and we're always looking for different student stories to tell and ways to amplify things. So we might see something that's going on and say, wow, that would actually be great for our website, or a feature story or a video or something. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with this group, and I'm really excited that Rachel came up with this awesome idea.
This is a place to brag about yourself. My boss, Mandy Semple, and I were just talking about this, that especially now in quarantine, and not everyone's on campus, and some people are at home over in India. I was just talking with a student that's in India, and we did this story. She's running 2 businesses on top of now going to be taking classes. It's just, and she also got all artists across India to collaborate, on one of her projects that she works on. We wouldn't have known about it if she didn't write to the Piper and said, hey, how do I get like part of these student features? Like, can I, submit myself for one? And we're like, hell yeah. So this is a place you can brag about yourself and brag about your organization, or, talk about yourself. We're happy to tell those stories for you.
Absolutely. And so we have this slide, connect with us, and we have like the account handles that we run. And then I think really the main hashtag that we use on Central and at Life at CMU is just at, hashtag Life at CMU. We're always looking at that. And then I think, CMU Social we use as well. But Life at CMU, I think we attach to a lot of content, that's student related and really fun. So feel free to, and always just feel free to tag us, tag our accounts and posts. It's a great way to just know that we're seeing it, or use those hashtags, and they'll come up. But, also I really hope that we, can connect with you guys in the Slack group, and then, we can share our emails as well,
Yeah.
so that you can connect with us personally. But I hope this was really helpful for you. And I hope that we can follow up and get to know more of you guys, and really have the chance to share your stories and what you're doing.
No, yeah, thank you for everyone's time. And I'm sure too that Andrew Greenwald, if you didn't catch the Slack link, he can connect you with us too for, to get in on there. And I think that might be something that, he's actually sending to everyone. So just throwing that out there. But yeah, thank you, everyone.